Welcome to the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast. This is the podcast where 4 psychotherapists, 3 of us Canadian, 1 of us Americans, serve you cutting edge mental health knowledge. I am Oscar award-winning psychotherapist Ryan Howes.
I'm Dr. Brooke Lewis. I don't have a catchy little line here. Yeah.
Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Pasadena, California. Where are you from, Brooke?
From British Columbia, Canada.
And I'm Joanna Boyd, a registered counselor from the Port Moody area.
I'm Chris Boyd, a seat filler at the Oscars from Portland.
Welcome, everybody. Yes, I didn't really win an Academy Award. Haven't really done any acting. I think that's a requirement for some of those awards.
I do think therapists would make remarkable actors.
Why do you say that?
Do explain.
We have to keep straight faces when we hear a lot of things.
We have to keep straight faces. We really understand like the human psyche and behavioral patterns. We can put together narratives. We understand how narratives work. We really can spot human behavior. And
Do you think we'd be better directors then?
We could be directors. I think we would be able to emulate it really well because we're so immersed with it. And often our nervous systems are like matching other people's nervous systems. So like, I think we would know what it would look like to collapse your body for emotion or like different. Yeah, I think that we would be really great actors.
Gosh, it's interesting you say that, Brooke, because I actually think opposite of that in that.
Wow.
Because I think that because of the need for genuineness and authenticity in our work, that acting is actually kind of different than that, you know, if I'm going to really show up and be me in the room with my client, that's not an act. I have to like avoid any act, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if I, congruence being like a matching of my insides, my outsides, that's a pretty important part of, I think, of what we do. Mm-hmm. And so I'm every day practicing not to act, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I just think back to when we had to do videos for
yeah, I didn't
mental health boot camp.
Real crummy.
That was awful. So no thing. I do not like to be in front of the camera. I think I would not be a good actor at all. So
we have the Mental Health Boot Camp podcast is based on our program, the Mental Health Boot Camp. And a couple of years ago, I flew up to Canada and we did videos for the website, mentalhealthbootcamp.com. And we spent all day doing these videos, and there were many, many takes and many, many bloopers because it wasn't easy to be in front of the cameras. Only like 5 minutes a piece, but boy, those were tough, weren't they?
They're super awkward. I'm sure we'd be better now. This was pre-COVID, obviously. So
True.
It was very foreign to be in front of a camera, but now we're in front of cameras so often that it might be a smidge different. Maybe not totally, but smidge.
And it depends too, if we're in front of cameras doing this, but we're just being ourselves versus having to like pretend to do something. I don't know.
That's true.
I think it's different, but you're right. We definitely around more cameras. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So anyone want to talk about toxic masculinity tonight?
Should we reference that amazing episode we did a little while ago?
It's not even
fun now.
Well, we did once talk about toxic masculinity for an episode, but we kind of saw some. I mean, if anyone was watching the Academy Awards this past week, the Oscars, as they're called, a lot of people are talking about that as being a good example of toxic masculinity, really, in a lot of ways. I'm sure most everyone who's listening to this is familiar with what happened, but if you're not, Chris Rock, a comedian, was up kind of filling some time on stage before he was going to introduce someone for an award. And he cracked some jokes about people in the audience as comedians do in these events. And he made a joke about Jada Smith, who has a shaved head because she's, I don't know if Chris knew this or not, but she suffers from alopecia, a hair loss disorder. Made a joke at her expense. Her husband, Will Smith, didn't care for that, came up on stage and slapped Chris Rock in the face, and then yelled some expletives as he sat down. It was big news. Anyway, everyone has already heard this story or seen it, but the toxicity part, one being that someone's making a joke, a man's up there making a joke about a woman who's suffering from an illness. Again, whether or not he knew that, I don't know. And certainly the other part, this kind of storming the stage and really assaulting somebody. And some people would say defending her honor. I mean, there's kind of a little debate out there, depending on, I don't know, what your beliefs are, how you were raised. I don't know how that works. But it's been an interesting discussion that I've had with several clients this week, particularly male clients. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's generated some interesting conversations, hasn't it? So many different perspectives on it, so much analysis on this. I'm trying to break it down scene by scene, trying to understand the context of the situation. But it was pretty brutal to watch, though. Never thought I would be witnessing that.
Absolutely. A lot of people thought it was staged because there are a lot of staged gags at the Oscars, and some people were thinking, wait, was that for real? Did that actually, was that really out of anger that we just witnessed this? And it was pretty shocking for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the aftermath of it. And of course, he stuck around and he won an Oscar after that and got a standing ovation. There's definitely some people have come out, maybe some celebrities who weren't at the Oscars. I know Jim Carrey came out not too long ago, and some of the hosts of the event, shared their perspectives days after. So again, very, very intriguing. I think I was looking at it even just half an hour ago, just seeing what the latest was on it. Just the discussion of it.
Certainly, yes. And and I've heard some people talking about this, especially people who have been in traumatic relationships or grew up in trauma, abusive households. Some of the things that Will was saying kind of struck them the wrong way. Like, we do crazy things for love, which is something that is repeated by people in households. Like, hey, sorry I hit you, but gosh, I love you so much. That really sends a really harsh, twisted message to loved ones at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was mentioning Adam Grant. He's a psychologist. He's got a great Instagram feed of quotes. And he was saying assault is not an expression of love. It's a symptom of what psychologists call precarious manhood. So in cultures of honor, men rationalize aggression as a means of maintaining respect and perpetuate cycles of violence. The best way to protect others is to break the cycle. So again, the culture of honor and standing up. And some people really do believe that. I saw some comments saying that was even in one circumstance, a beautiful display, beautiful to watch that, right? So I think what I'm intrigued by is, I think Ryan, you alluded to it, just everyone has our different experiences, and we see our lens based on our common biology as well as different experiences that we've had. So I think that's the most intriguing part of it, is how varied the perceptions have been, right?
Absolutely. I work with a lot of men in my practice, and one of the things that a few of them commented on was how, again, if you've watched the video several times, like some people do, myself included, there was the joke, and it appeared that Will was laughing at first at the joke.
Mm-hmm.
I think he looked over to his wife and saw that she wasn't laughing. She was actually upset by this. And that's when he went and stormed the stage, right? And as some people have posited there, like there's the laughter, she didn't like that. Now there's like this almost guilt feeling for a second there of, oh gosh, I need to do something about this. And then there's this kind of triggered response, this sort of knee-jerk response. I'm going to go and do something, drastic about this. And some of the guys I've been talking to have talked about that moment, that kind of losing your cool, losing touch with rational thought in that moment, and I just have to go act on something, right? That not a rationalization, just an explanation of like sometimes that's what people experience, and I'm talking about the men I've been talking to. I know that women experience that too, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. That emotional reactivity, right? We've talked about what's happening within the brain and body, and when we get heightened like that, sometimes we can be very impulsive and reactive, not think things through. I think upon reflection, I'm sure, and maybe Will Smith didn't feel too great about what he had done, and I think he did send out a message the next day. Who knows what his mindset was after, of course, but I think he alluded to that, the emotional reactivity, right?
Yeah, and again, that can come from a number of places as well. Someone else, his own history and his own experiences in his life. But I'll say, Will, if you're looking for a therapist, I'm just right down the road. I'm sure Will's a regular listener to the podcast, so
I'm sure he is.
happy to help him with that. Would that feel for you guys if someone was sort of defending you or defending your honor in that way and they punched someone, would that feel good for you?
No.
I don't like any kind of physical violence. Nope.
Mm.
Uncomfy. Nope.
I think, I don't know, for me, it might be a little more complicated than that. If it was a bit more of a intensive situation, like that was a joke. It wasn't a tasteful joke by any means. And I understand there's that side of it, the whole, we could talk about comedy and even just the purpose of that, or but anyways, yeah, if it was like a really difficult situation where maybe aggression and violence may lead to you protecting yourself and someone you care about, then I understand in those circumstances, but definitely not in that scenario.
Yeah, I think if it's a matter of protection and keeping people safe, and that's the resort you need to go to, but not in the way that it happened. Like no conversation, like nothing happened before that. It went straight to the physicality, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, I think the words versus physical aggression is there's a leap there. There's a big step there. Certainly words can hurt. I don't believe in this sticks and stones can break my bones. Words will never hurt me. Words can be very, very damaging to people. However, you can combat that with words, maybe, or other means. You don't necessarily have to go to the physical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've worked with clients though, who often they look for those qualities in males and guys, more the alpha male type of complex, and they see that as protection. Some women who've had trauma histories and are growing up around violence and aggression. So often that's a little more normalized in their lives, and so if they're upset, then that could be something that they would want to see in their partner. So I've seen that before, chatting with clients in the past.
Absolutely. Well, I thought we'd have more thoughts on that, but that's okay. I have no regrets about bringing it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just been interesting reading about it. I know I've been pretty quiet, but I don't know. It's been interesting reading and people from different areas and people, who, have their own issues, whether disabilities or things or along the lines of alopecia or other things, and they're like, there's opinions from there, and then there's bringing in skin color and being a Black woman, and I, reading things about this is, like, it just seems like I'm like, holy smokes, like I don't even, I'm very intrigued by it all. That's all. I don't really know what to make of it. It's just,
Sure.
yeah.
So I'm curious, like some discussions have popped up about, how Will Smith could have reacted in lots of different ways, but what would have been more appropriate? What would have been more supportive in that situation? Like, what do you think about that?
I don't, I don't, I think even if there was a call out in that, I don't know, of that moment, like, I'm not saying those things shouldn't be stood up for. Like maybe he could have called out and said something or spoken up or made some public thing towards Chris Rock in a different way, or I don't know, interrupted the show in a different way other than going to hit someone. That could have been done in the moment if it, standing up in a different way.
Or they could have chose to like either deal with it, like they could have dealt with it there, but they could have dealt with it after. They could have dealt with it later. Whether that means staying as an audience member, but Will could have supported Jada emotionally instead. Whether that means, again, staying there, or if they left the premise to go and have a debrief and a walk, and like, how are you feeling right now? And what was that like for you? And how are you holding up? Like, so make it about her and help support her through that, opposed to then, I think that he could have supported her more directly.
Yeah.
Opposed to fighting the aggressor per se. But I also, I am not one that enjoys stand-up comedy, never have. I don't know if I ever will, because I find that it's always at the expense of other people, and that really, really bothers me. So I will not even go to a comedy show. I went to one and I had to walk out. People try to get me to watch videos. I have to turn them off. Like, I get very, very, very uncomfortable. And watching these award shows are very similar in that way, where people just constantly are making fun of other people. So I, like Chris said, maybe there's something to be said there about, maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm a bit of a snowflake, as they say, or perhaps we need to really take a look at how comedy is shaped and what that looks like moving forward a little bit. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Some people said, like, there's consequences to some of these things that comedians are saying. And so, not saying it was the most appropriate one, but some people do believe it was an appropriate consequence. So,
so I think
line, and then again, what I briefly mentioned this before we logged on, but like safety for comedians moving forward. So a comedian had mentioned that in one of her posts, like, what does this mean moving forward? So if somebody gets insulted by a joke, are they now allowed to go on stage and hit a comedian?
That's scary.
Does it give permission to do so, right? Like, and then reevaluating, well, then what type of material are we actually putting out there?
Yeah, I like the idea of, like, Will Smith could have had a gesture, or like consoled his wife, grabbed her hand. Visually, you could definitely send visual cues to the comedian, to Chris Rock. He didn't appreciate the joke. You could just, you didn't have, and then maybe after, you can always approach him and say, hey, kind of hit close to home there with the diagnosis that she's had and the struggles that she's had. You could debrief it that way, or if you want to, you can make a statement the next day, or a tweet, or so many ways to communicate.
I know Will, at the moment, he didn't know that he was going to win the Oscar, but I had this fantasy of, gosh, if he knew that he was going to have a chance to go up on stage to talk, he could have gone up on stage and made his acceptance speech about, appropriate ways to defend your family, which is kind of what the movie was about. The movie that he was being given the award for was about a protective dad who could lose it sometimes, was ultimately a loving man, and he could have channeled that into a great speech and included, his wife's alopecia, and could have probably raised millions of dollars for alopecia funding.
And And that would have potentially elicited a heartfelt apology from Chris Rock to say, whoa, okay, I could see how perhaps I need to apologize. That was maybe crossed a line or whatever. There might have been an actual option there for resolution for the initial injury, but now there's this whole other piece that's on top of that.
Oh yeah, what happened there, slap will forever overshadow his Oscar win, as well as the hard work all the other people did that night, like the hosts and the other winners, right? Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and the filmmakers once made that very film.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that Will Smith will regret his actions?
I suspect that he already does, but
Well, I wonder what he can do with that regret.
If only there was a book that could help him.
If only there was a book.
Mm-hmm.
It's book club night, everybody. Joe, take it away. What an awesome song. We love hearing that.
it gets better and better every time.
We should get you an award.
Yeah.
Okay.
A Grammy?
The book club. We're talking about The Power of Regret by Daniel Pink, which just came out. This is a fairly new release, just this year, 2022. And talks all about regret, not what a lot of people think is have no regrets in life. No, he's saying that we can learn from them, and that emotions are powerful. They teach us a lot, and we need to stop discarding emotion and really start paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, regret is purposeful.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what are your initial impressions of this book for everyone? Did you enjoy it, not enjoy it? Did you read it? Did you listen to it?
I listened to it a few weeks ago, and I'll say generally speaking, I enjoyed it. I'm not giving my score yet, but I listened to it and I thought it was a pleasant listen. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have the book. So I prefer reading instead of listening. Regret's an interesting topic. I think it usually has a negative connotation to it. And so I think I was happy to read a little bit about, the power of it and how it can actually be beneficial. I think regret comes up a lot, I think, with clients. And so I think it's nice to actually have some information to give and some different ways of looking at it. So I thought it was a beneficial read for sure.
I also listened to it. I like the flow of the book. I thought it was a pretty easy read. Still lots of good tidbits of information in there. So there's some depth to it. It made me think about lots of different things, but it wasn't too heavy, which I liked.
Yeah, I'm similar to you guys. So I listened to this one. Didn't have time to pick up a copy, but overall enjoyed it. Like I thought it was easy to listen to. I thought it had enough depth, but still accessible. Like it was I think it was a good happy medium. Like I think a large amount of the population could read this book and understand the book. Like it wasn't too heavy or dry or anything like that. So so Joanna, because you read it, all the little snippets where there's like people who have answered the questions, like little statements from them or quotes from them. In the audiobook, they have like different actors with different voices kind of like reading them out.
Oh, okay.
So it would break up the narrator. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, you got to be creative with some of these.
So in the book, are they just marked as a quote? I'm just curious. Or were they actually like...
They kind of are just in their own little paragraph, and they'll have it in different writing. Like they'll have like that someone says, and then they're like different. You could tell it's someone, or they make note of it. It's different print. Yeah, and then they have, they're just quotes like this, just quotes,
Yeah.
separate page.
So what
Yeah, I
Pink
think
did is
a
go
good
ahead.
flow. No. It was just, visually they separated everything well. It was an easy flow for sure.
So he put together something called the World Regret Survey, and there's a website, I believe, linked to that, where people can just write down what do you regret? What are your biggest regrets in your life? And collected thousands, tens of thousands of statements from people around the world talking about what their particular regrets are. What do they think about when they think of things from the past that they regret? And he noted that they kind of tended to fall in 4 different categories. And he talked a bit about how in the past people would categorize regrets in terms of work regrets or relationship regrets or other sorts of things having to do with kind of areas of their life. But he said, no, I think that there are 4 different categories. He calls these foundation regrets, which are things like that establish the foundation of your life. Things like, did you drop out of school, or did you study the wrong subject or something? Or have you not been taking care of your health, or did you start smoking early and not quit? Something like that. Foundation regrets. Boldness regrets, which have to do with, do you regret not asking someone out at some point, or not taking a risk, or taking a chance somewhere? Moral regrets, which have to do with sometime when you knew you had a choice between kind of doing the right thing and the wrong thing, and you chose to do the wrong thing. I stole something, I cheated on someone, I made some sort of moral choice that I think about to this day. And then he calls connection regrets, which oftentimes have to do with relationships that you've had in your life that you have let go. Oftentimes friendships that you feel like, oh, I've lost touch with them, and I wish I could get back in touch with them, but it would be awkward, or maybe they wouldn't want to reconnect with me. And so he talks a lot throughout the book of those kind of 4 categories of regrets. And I think I found that pretty helpful.
I did too. I liked how we kind of laid that out, for sure. And then, as Brooke mentioned, all the different quotes from the actual regret survey kind of added some substance to it.
Sure.
Definitely added some color.
Yeah, it did. It did. And kind of the overall premise being what you said before, Brooke, that negative feelings are signals for thinking. When you have a strong negative reaction to something, he says that's supposed to kind of alert us to some problem to solve, or something to do going forward. Gosh, I really feel bad about doing this thing in the past. And he says, instead of just kind of sitting in that bad feeling, you should start thinking about, well, what can I do differently going forward from here? What can I do maybe for restitution or to make it right? But at least what can I do to change my own behavior going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he had a few tips to respond to the regret, right? So instead of being swept up by it and fixating and ruminating, he offered some pretty practical suggestions. So I think that was his first one, wasn't it? Like, if you have a regret, try to undo it, or try to shift, or try to repair the damage if you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he kind of got into there. And then, of course, if it can't be undone, you got another possibility. And the second one was like, find the silver lining, which I thought was kind of practical too. So this happened, but at least ... So you're trying to make that pivot in your mind a bit.
The example he likes for that one was, someone who says, oh, I married the wrong person, but at least I have these 3 wonderful kids, or something like that, right? Where you just trying to find something positive about that choice, even if it wasn't all 100% great for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they did some research on that, and the alternative is if only, right? If you just fixate on the fact you married that person, then that can hold you back from obviously a number of different things in your life, right? So finding that silver lining or using the at least was a great way to again respond.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you're Will Smith and you're regretting what happened on stage last week, the undoing would be, okay, what can I do to make this right? Apologizing, I think, would be part of that, which he did. Hopefully he did one personally too to Chris, but maybe some other gesture to try to undo some of the negative of that experience. The silver lining. It's interesting. I wonder if there's a silver lining from that experience.
Mhm.
Well, I think he alluded to that he is, what did he say? I'm a work in progress or something like that. So maybe we'll trigger some personal growth there in his life of some kind. Of course, he can't undo what happened there. So, but I think Daniel Pink mentions another strategy is to tell others, right? The admission of that. So writing about it or privately or just or to someone that you trust. So obviously he's a celebrity, so that admission might look a little different from someone else, but so I guess maybe he did that a bit through his Instagram message or a tweet, whatever it was.
He kind of goes over, I guess, well, it's near the beginning of the book, but the 3 benefits of regret. I think there's the improving decisions. I think it could deepen meaning, and what was the other one? Boost performance. So those are 3 benefits there, and I think it was the first one with the improving decisions. I like how he did regret hygiene, I think he called it, and so it kind of forces you to slow down, and the negativity, I guess, from the regret forces you to kind of take things slower the next time, and kind of with more information, it might improve your future decisions. So I like that term, the regret hygiene.
He had a lot of really great language around it, or ways to make regret a positive thing opposed to making regret a negative, scary thing, like a shameful thing. He did a really good job of that.
Something along those lines. One of the things I really appreciated, he talked about New Year's resolutions, how people always make New Year's resolutions, and it's oftentimes something big and aspirational. He suggested, why don't you just look at what your past year's regrets were? What do you regret about your past year? And then grab a hold of that and try to turn that into kind of a resolution for the next year. So I thought that's very practical. I don't know many. I've never done that. That's an interesting point. I'm going to do that next year.
Yeah. Along those same lines, didn't you talk about the we usually do a post-mortem. He did a pre-mortem. So talking about what you may regret in the future and trying to get that out and try to conceptualize that. I think he used Jeff Bezos as an example. So apparently Bezos did something similar. Or maybe he did a bit more of an regret analysis, saying, if I decide not to start this new venture up, will I regret that? Versus if I do start it and I fail. So I think he found motivation from that, right?
Yeah.
Well, are you gonna say something? Sorry, mouth open there. He also touched on self-compassion as a technique to help with regret too. So highlighting the research, is it Kristen Neff, who's like kind of the big pioneer when it comes to self-compassion. So trying to kind of shift your perspective a bit. So if what would you say to a friend if they were feeling this level of regret, or what would a friend tell you if they knew that you're experiencing this regret? So trying to treat yourself like you would treat others.
Self-compassion, always helpful. Did this book make you reflect on your own regrets? Anything from your own life?
I think it's hard for it not to. I think it's makes you maybe think about, your own relationship with regret, and maybe different ways you can look at it or conceptualize it, or the if onlys or the at leasts. And totally. I'm probably not going to share any with you right now, but I think it's been good to reflect upon, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're going to be reading about it, you're going to be thinking about it. I feel like I fall in the category of people who say, oh, I don't have regrets because everything has led me to where I am today, which he addresses in the book. And so then he mentions, well, if you would go back and do it again, would you make that same choice? If you were to pick that thing, would you make that same choice? And whether or not you would say yes or no, right? In which case, then you start thinking, oh gosh, what would I have said? No, I wouldn't do that again. Or yes, I would have done that differently, because then maybe you do have some regrets. And you want to think about that and own that and be okay with that moving forward. You can still honor that all of these things helped you become the person that you are. But if you were to go back, maybe you would do a few things a little bit differently.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I have regrets from all these categories, I believe. I'm no stranger to these regrets. One that he mentioned many times, and I absolutely could resonate with it, is he talked about a lot of people in his worldwide survey said, I wish I would have studied abroad when in college, if given the opportunity. And I didn't do that. I had friends who did, and I had opportunities to do that. And I just chose, no, I think I just want to stay here and stay with my friends, and it's safe and nice and known. And I didn't want to venture out. And gosh, I've thought about that a lot. Boy, I wish I would have spent a semester in Asia or a semester in Europe or something like that. That would have been a lot of fun. I know it's a very privileged thing to regret, but I acknowledge that something that I've definitely thought about. That would have been, so what can I learn from that? Well, I can learn now that, gosh, staying safe and not taking the risk is an option, but sometimes taking the risk and doing something that's out of my comfort zone could reap more benefits. So I've tried to travel more in my adulthood and really enjoyed that. Haven't regretted a bit of it. So it's been fun.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I think I've shared before that, wasn't as focused academically earlier on in my high school and life. But I think as time went on, maybe early college as well, perhaps, but as time went on, though, I think I found my stride there. But so I think that kind of taught me too, like looking back, there's always in the back of my mind that, oh, you miss out on this opportunity to really get the most out of your education. So I think I've been kind of driven to make the most of learning opportunities moving forward, which is great for our field because continuing education is so important.
Yeah. And then with all of these, again, that, everything happens and you're the person you are because of it. Part of my mind goes to the at least, like, so for you, Ryan, perhaps there was, well, at least I did stay and I had these really exceptional experiences, or I was able to develop my friendships with these people became deeper or long lasting, or I realized these people were not healthy for me and they're no longer in my life. There's other ways that your life advanced by choosing what you did. And for Chris, like, there's probably a bazillion stories and experiences that you have because you were spending time not necessarily studying or in class or whatever the heck you were doing. But there were other things that you did experience which applied to your growth. So it's always interesting to me, like, I wonder with these regrets, as you get older and you're at a different phase of life, or your values or morals adapt or change, those regrets, I think, are going to change with you, right? Like, yeah. And
True.
so that'll be interesting, I'm sure, as we all grow older after the next 10, 20 years of our lives, to see what changes there.
Yeah. And the fact Ryan asked that question, it gives a chance to divulge that regret, which will reduce some of its burden, which can clear a path to making sense of it, which was basically what Daniel Pink was saying, right? About telling others. So there we go.
Sure. Yes. I divulged it. I divulged it to all of you. Yes. I wish I would have gone to London for a term or something, but yes, you're right, Brooke. I totally agree. I mean, we just don't know, right? We don't know what, we will never know. The idea of doing that semester abroad would have been, it's a fantasy, and maybe it's idealized in my mind too. So I don't have any idea what that would have been like. It could have been the worst trip of my life. I never know.
It might have deterred you from ever traveling again.
Yeah, that's right.
But instead, the regret has sparked this passion of travel, where you make sure that you incorporate that into your life. And which is why regret is a good thing.
Do you think there's if someone shares regrets with you, is it important to, listen and hear them out and maybe not jump to, well, at least, because then that could be like invalidating. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, if there's I guess you would treat it as if you would listen to any story or help validate or experience or listen to them or whatever, explore what they're talking about. But I just thought about that at least thing. I was like, but what if they just need to still learn something from it, or maybe they just need to still suss it out a little bit. I don't know. But I guess different people will get different things from exploring their regrets, but I don't know.
Yeah. But again, I think the admission of it is important, and to explore the feelings associated with it. And if, so luckily, our clients can chat to us in the therapy office, but if you can't do that, then I think he talks about Jamie Pennebaker's work as well, right? Doing the writing. So just 20 minutes for a few days in a row. Also has lots of great benefits.
Just expressing it somehow, getting it out of you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Joanna, I agree with you that you're probably going to want to validate and listen. And I probably wouldn't jump right into the at least.
No. Yeah. I figured. I think I just thought about that because it's even for people to give themselves a chance to explore it, or the admission part before, even for themselves feeling pressure to go to the at least part.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one thing that I've talked about with clients that, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really think you got into this point in the book, but when I've talked with clients about regrets that they have about their past, usually decisions that they made, I usually have the phrase, you made the best decision with the information you had at the time. Right. And that's oftentimes the case. You're not often knowing this is going to be really bad for me, so I'm going to choose to do this. Right. But you're weighing your options, you're weighing the risk, and you're saying at that moment, okay, this is what I think is going to be best for me. Maybe, it could be something even that's in the moral piece, well, I'm going to shoplift this shirt, but I think I can get away with it, and I really want to have the shirt. I don't have the money for it, so I'm going to just steal it. I got caught, I went to jail, all that stuff. I regret doing it. But at that time, you probably thought you were making the best decision. And oftentimes it's not as, harsh as that one. It's just little things like, did I break up with this person or stay with this person? Did I, a lot of other choices in their life. And
Mhm.
usually we're trying to make the best decision at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to see the stuff in hindsight through the rearview mirror and say, oh yeah, that wasn't a good decision. But in the moment, we don't have that option, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm with you. I use that phrase a lot with clients. Historically, I've worked with, not so much anymore, Chris works more with them, but motor vehicle accidents or workplace accidents. So there's actually regret around timing there a little bit. Like, I regret leaving the house late. I regret leaving, like, there's kind of this, if only I had left 5 minutes earlier or later, but there's actually kind of regret tied in with that. I regret not, I don't know, doing whatever it is they would have loved to do, and now their injury prevents them from doing that. And again, it's, you made the best choice given you didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
There has to be some forgiveness in there somewhere.
Yeah. Right.
Some radical acceptance that this did happen and it's shitty.
Yeah.
I'm still here. And that makes it okay.
So maybe that's where that self-compassion comes in a little bit, because you're right. There's often a lot of self-blame. I made this decision, or the injuries, I'm dealing with the injuries, right? So they kind of internalize or personalize the impact of that in the lives, and of course in their life, as well as the lives of the people they care about. So yeah, we see that a lot, eh?
One bit that he did talk about that was pretty clear to him, at least, was the idea of the lost connections, right? You've lost touch with an old friend. You didn't go to their wedding or something, and then you feel bad about it. So then you haven't talked to them for 15 years and you really miss them. And a lot of people get caught in that. Well, if I reach out, it'll be awkward, and then it probably, I don't think it'll go well. What if they don't want to be back in connection with me? And he said that overwhelmingly, that is a false belief. Overwhelmingly, from the people he's talked to, if you make that connection, the other person is understanding. It's not as awkward as you might think, and they're happy to hear from you and happy to reconnect. Unless there was some sort of major falling out or something. It's just the kind of friends that kind of faded apart. From what he's seen, chances are it's going to go well, which I thought was really positive.
Yeah, he had a good little reframe there. He said that friend that you regret losing touch with, and you haven't talked to in a while, and if she reached out to you right now or tomorrow, how do you react? And I think she said, "Oh, I'd be thrilled. It'd be such an emotional moment. I'd be so happy to hear from her." Right. So it's like a nice little cognitive reframe there, shifted the perspective on her, and hopefully increase the chances of her reaching out to that friend.
Yeah, a lot of good little takeaways I found from the book, like those. Another takeaway I had was this, I believe he said it was a Japanese saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yes.
So yeah, sure. Maybe it would have been great if something didn't happen 20 years ago. Fine. But you can still do something about it now. It's nice.
Yeah, it's a great one.
It is great. Also timely with, like climate change and the fact that we need more trees. And it's springtime here, and I've been thinking about planting a tree in my yard. It was, perfect timing. Trees, literally plant a tree today.
Let's do it. That's good. Well,
yeah.
Are we ready to give a score?
Oh, we're supposed to write them down, right?
Yes.
Oh,
nothing to write down.
Mine's already written down.
Okay, they may. Do Do, 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 do,
There's no pens in this room. Okay, I'll put on my phone.
do.
Use like, do you have like little pieces of paper to rip up and put in the like the shape of a number?
I don't think so. Okay. I'll write it on this phone. Okay.
Okay, we ready?
All show our number. Is that what we're doing?
Yep.
Yeah.
You can show it at the same time. 1, 2, 3.
We see Chris.
Oh, got it. Okay. Chris had a 7.1.
7.1.
I had an 8.
I have a
Brooke.
7.5.
7.5, and Joe has
8.25.
8.25. Oh, you guys are so specific. Wow.
8 was, that was the first thing. And then I was like, we'll go up a bit.
Go up a little bit. Okay.
That's
Well-
interesting. I thought maybe more like 7. I was like, no, it needs to be a little higher than 7. But I didn't feel like it was quite an 8.
That's fair. I know. I feel like each time it's hard because I think about the stuff we've done, but then I'm like, I can't really commit. You got to kind of just, it's hard to compare to the other books.
Yeah, because it's different style and purpose and
Yeah. I thought it was an easy, like good flow. I think it was informative. I think it gave some good ideas for people to think about. I think it'll be helpful with clients. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
8.5.
I would definitely like recommend the book to clients or practitioners, like variety of people. Yeah, easy to read. And I don't know what it would be missing for me to bump it up a bit. Like to make it an 8 or a 9, I'm not really sure. So that just might be more of a subjective fit with myself. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I read a lot of self-help books, and for me it feels like a lot of them cover a lot of the same ground, like even referring to the same studies or the same authors and that sort of thing. And he did a little bit of that, but I felt like there was enough fresh here and enough new here that it was interesting for me. That's part of what kept my interest. Plus, it's a bit shorter than a lot of the other self-help books I've read. So that was welcomed as well. Give it to me, give me the punch. Also, all of the quotes I think were really helpful too, and just illustrating the point. So it was interesting. So yeah, I was pleased. What could make it better? Yeah, I don't know. I think it maybe even if something was even more groundbreaking. But I did like the tidbits of information, the little bits of advice he shared throughout. Like my next New Year's resolution, I'm thinking of my last year's regrets. I'm doing that.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of really, really good stuff, but nothing where I was like, whoa, that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of really good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think it's a good interpretation of it. Like for me, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And some of the examples he used, some of the stuff I've kind of heard before, or the premise of it before. But I think it flowed really well, and I thought it was, fairly upbeat, and maybe it could have been a little higher than 7.1, because the more we talk about it, the more I'm not quite sure how he could have improved on it, but I'd recommend it for sure.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, there wasn't like it wasn't really an emotional book. It didn't make me, wasn't I like the existential stuff sometimes that really makes you think. This is kind of a interesting read and kept my attention, and I don't think, was there like super in-depth stories? I know it was like little tidbits of people talk about things they regret, but
it's interesting. There were some stories that kind of repeated, or some longer stories, but they weren't necessarily all that groundbreaking, right? Like there was a lot of talking about tattoos at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
A lot of talking about people getting a tattoo with no regrets, and for some reason, it really dove deep into the tattoo, no regrets, just to really make the point of everyone has regrets except for like small kids and the, people with severe traumatic brain injury and sociopaths. So, okay, that's summarizing it in a sentence. Like, no regrets. It's not a great tattoo idea because we need to learn from our regrets. But boy, he dove into that really hard. And then the story at the end of the woman who wanted to reconnect with an old friend and really felt conflicted about that. But yeah, probably could have had some deeper stories. I know that there are people who have regrets that are much more significant than that.
Yeah, the regrets people had it was nice to hear it peppered in there, but there was a lot of repetition and wasn't a ton of depth to that or context to that, but which is fine. I made that exceeds what he was doing in his study. But
sure.
Anyways, yeah, good book all around.
I don't regret reading it. That's for sure.
No, exactly. Me either. So we'll have to think about off screen what our next book will be.
Yes. Yeah, we will.
And then we will let you listeners/viewers know next time.
That's right. Good deal. Well, fun book club. Thanks for reading and listening along with us. And I guess we'll just sign off for now. So goodbye, everybody. Like and subscribe. Apple, Google, Podbean, Audible, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Send your questions to info@mentalhealthbootcamp.com. Visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Tell a friend or two. You won't regret it. Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.